Welcome back to another edition of Light Beer, Dark Money. I am Chris Clements, and this is not Sean Noble. No. Good friend Corey from Branch 49. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be in the seat, any seat.
Yeah, thank you for being
especially
here.
Sean's seat.
Well, I mean, it's a hot seat.
Well, about 3 of Sean's, I think I fit in his seat. So, but it's warmed up for me.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it took about 4 years to get an invite back. Is that the cycle? Is that the cadence you guys are on?
You were like second, third episode when we were at GCU.
I thought it was a sound check, and it turned into a podcast.
Yes. Well, I mean, we thought that we would only have about, I don't know, like 300 listeners. And now we're in the tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the latest numbers, they dropped off a little bit from the election, but
Gotcha.
we're holding our own.
And so you're missing out on the overweight, brat eater Wisconsin demographic. Let's bring Corey back on, see if we could boost that demo. I got
No,
you.
I mean, but you have your own podcast.
We do. I think we have several dozen listeners. I think
Dozen listeners?
Yes.
What is the name of your podcast?
MarketDominanceGuys.com is what we call it.
And that's all just about sales and dominating
just
the market.
about sales. There's nothing in this room, Chris, that happened without sales or trust happening. So yes, it's just about
that is true.
The laws of gravity and capitalism.
Well, and you would know that heading up Branch 49. Tell our listeners about what you do.
So Branch 49, with your great help, 5 years ago, I think we when you were helping out at the incubator.
You know what? You were too kind.
Mm-hmm.
I just came in and out of meetings and gave my 2 cents, and that's all I do now with businesses.
Okay, with the inflationary procedure, I think that 2 cents is worth quite a bit now. So we are, through the grace of folks like yourself and President Mueller and Grand Canyon University over at the Canyon Centers for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, as you know, over at the ever-growing, double-digit growing Grand Canyon University, right? What are they at? A number of students now. They've got to be.
I know it's over 20,000 just
crazy.
between online and on campus.
And
it's nuts. Might even be bigger than that.
I think so. I thought it was over 100,000 between online and.
Okay, so I'm thinking about on campus then. It's over 100,000.
Yeah, Billy, will our producer check on that? Is that kind of operation this is? This podcast?
It can be.
You can call
once,
your producer
once in a while,
out.
or we just do it on our laptops.
I see. Okay, all right. Well,
no, it's all.
So
good.
it's a big operation, and we were through our mutual friend Kevin Youngblood, of course, right? Kevin and Robert had the vision to say, hey, listen, a lot of the challenge with startup companies today, and you know this, Chris, from your background, is that hey, I got an idea, and how should I parlay this idea into market dominance, or far be it, revenues? And as you know,
what a novel idea, revenues.
What a novel idea, revenues. But you would think, right, antithetically, with the Silicon Valley experience that you and I both have, and the private equity experience, a lot of folks will focus on, hey, how much money can I raise?
Yes.
And
imagine that.
And that vanity metric. Can we post something on LinkedIn of how much I raised, as opposed to, does anybody want to buy my stuff?
Yeah.
And so Kevin and Robert and the team over there said, hey, let's find this guy Corey here to see if he would make some phone calls for us and help companies validate not just product market fit, but more importantly, message market fit.
Yeah.
And if the message resonates, then there may be some there, and maybe these organizations can do less on the fundraising and keep a portion of their own company a little bit longer versus certainly what I've been through is as long as you and I have known each other, and some of my companies, is we overraised. And what happens is by the time you get to the C round, the D round, it's kind of like that scene in Napoleon.
If you're in the D round, I mean, you're not cranking on revenues and sales. You're in deep trouble.
It's a little tough. It's
the D round is
well, hey, we've been there. I've been there.
Yeah,
and it's like that scene in Napoleon Dynamite,
deep trouble,
when he's cleaning the kitchen or the chicken coops, and he's like counting his pennies, and like, that's like $1 an hour, right? That's kind of how it is where you become an employee. You have dreams of being in entrepreneurship and having an office like this overlooking, beautiful scenic Scottsdale, and instead you're, in the basement office, colo, and meanwhile you gave away the majority of your company and you're stuck, and that's well, we try to preempt that a little bit.
Yeah, you've diluted your dream.
That's correct. Yes. And
Yeah, you get to the point, ladies and gentlemen, where you're in dream dilution. That's usually what the D round means.
the dream dilution. I've never heard of that.
You never heard of that? I think I just came up with that, to be honest with you. But it illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Is that you get these young entrepreneurs that you're very familiar with, and they've got these big dreams and big ideas, and they come to investors and they're like, I've got this amazing idea, and you need to invest in it. And I want your $5,000, $10,000, $100,000.
Yes.
And when you ask them, how are you going to get to revenue? And
what do they say typically?
They go
In your
blank.
experience? Yeah.
What's the product? What's the market fit? And how are you going to get to revenue?
Yeah.
And in this year or that year, we hope to be in revenue. And investors nowadays, I think what you're getting to is they don't have the patience anymore.
They don't. And Robert Vera, our mutual friend from GCU, he has an expression. He says a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays, they want to build statues, not machines.
That's a great point.
And when you focus on building the statue of what your legacy is, or the vanity metrics around that, or the perfect product, you forget that this has to be a scalable machine that can produce revenue. And it's very alluring, certainly, as you know, from coming from an entrepreneurial family and being around entrepreneurs your entire professional life, is that everybody wants that, but how to get from point A to point B, they forget that you actually have to talk to strangers and ask them for time or money.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do at Branch 49 is the early days is try to hopefully expedite and give some insight into those cycles. That's what we talk about on market dominance, guys, is nothing big in the B2B world happens unless you trust somebody and talk with somebody. I don't see a lot of large six-figure purchases happening because of an ad or because of, hey, I'm going to send you a DocuSign without talking with anybody. And certainly advertising works, but it's really, when you think about it, it's the attenuation of that message. It's not a one-on-one message. It's not a hyper-personalized message. And that comes from people talking with people. And by what we do and what we believe in the old Chet Holmes market dominance methodology is talking to folks, making your list, talking to folks inside that list, and then doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, until you make the sale.
Until you make the sale. And generally what we believe and what we teach as, and you've heard us use this expression, as a Branch 49 is a finishing school for future CEOs. And part of that process to be a finishing school is to learn that you got target, you got list, you got message, and you got the rep, the delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people focus more on the product and not on the target, list, message, or rep proponents.
Well, and what you do, I mean, just to be clear for everyone, is a method by which a lot of companies just shy away from. And even young entrepreneurs don't want to embrace cold calling.
Yeah.
Which is like public speaking for most. There's two words in the business language that you can throw at a young person coming out of college.
Yeah.
Public speaking, cold calling, and they freeze.
Yeah. Well,
that's not even just true for college graduates. For most people in the business world, they freeze.
They freeze. Well, we had this conversation with your daughter a few years ago. I remember at, if you don't mind me saying, I think what she wanted to be to work for the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Want to be in football. I want to be in sports marketing somehow. And we had a good candid conversation. I said, well, who is the person? The list, who is the person that you want to get in front of to say, hey, if I only got a shot in front of this person, I think I'd give myself good odds that I'd get an opportunity. And she gave me that person, and it was head of the Dallas Cowboys marketing team, I think it was, right?
Okay.
So a gal. And we said, great, have you ever spoken with her? I said, no, I've never spoken with her. It's like, well, let's find out if she has a phone number.
Let's give her a call.
And let's give her a call. So you have target. I know who I'm after. I have the list. Let's find out if we get a number and information. Do we have a message? What are we going to say to her?
Yeah.
And then more importantly, how are you going to say it?
Yeah.
And we believe at branching and cold calling, I didn't invent this stuff up, but there's the Shannon information theorem, which is signal to noise ratio. And you think about what we're doing right now, and maybe even some of the 7 or 10 listeners here who are disappointed not to see Sean in this seat, but they see Corey, and may have a few seconds where we'll be able to grip them before they see that Sean's not here today. But we believe in that that trust can be developed. Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference talks about this in 7 seconds or less. And the Shannon Information Theorem states that what you say, how you say it, will elicit a positive or negative response from a prospect, a cold prospect, somebody we've never met before. And if you can do that well in a replicable format, you're going to understand how your market works and the dynamics of your market. And if you don't, if every rep feels like they're a statue, well, I got my methodology. Thank you, boss. You want me to get these leads? You want me to get these names and numbers? I got it. I got a system. You hired an experienced guy here, after all, and that's a statue, not a machine, and that's a recipe for a little bit more time than it takes.
Disaster.
Well, it extends.
Arrogance. It comes across in the cold calling, I would imagine.
It does. So how can you have a screenplay that is replicable over time, that feels spontaneous, feels serendipitous, but it really is? That's what we call them, screenplays versus scripts. And you have to have the ahs and the ums and the ers in there in the cold call. We believe those verbal disfluencies, because that helps build trust and authenticity, because humans talk that way.
Yeah.
People don't talk like a TED Talk, right?
Yeah.
People don't talk like an AI bot where there's no. I think one of my old Jesuit priest teachers said, "Never trust a man who doesn't walk around with a little bit of a limp." And I think we're wired to look and see that imperfections mean humanity and authenticity.
Yeah.
And which is countercultural to how you should position yourself on social media or LinkedIn or even politicians, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Mm-hmm. Well, you guys have been tremendously successful. You go on your website and all the different companies that you've represented, and so you've gotten buy-in to this type of cold calling, which is, like you said, authentic and real, and not necessarily totally scripted, but obviously a performance nonetheless.
It is a performance. Yeah, we try to, and we had a case. One of our new gals who started. She's an intern from NAU. She has her own radio station, and never thought about sales as a career. But we knew her father, and her father said, "Hey, listen, this is what you need for this summer. You have to develop this skill of talking to strangers."
Yeah.
And she's got an incredible voice and incredible charm.
Believing in yourself and talking to strangers.
Believe in yourself. So this never happens, by the way, Chris. I don't know if it happened with your companies, but we created a list for her, rehearsed the screenplay, had her role play a little bit. She made one call. She had the first conversation on that one call, and she got the first meeting on that one call.
Oh, that's tremendous.
We've been on this for a long. I've never heard that before. Now
that's not that. Yeah, I was just going to say that's
rare.
Not rare.
I've never heard
that's
that
almost
before.
impossible.
But when you listen to her and when you hear her, you see like, wow, that makes sense. And so,
well, and what it really makes sense is she probably, being in the radio or around that environment, she has the cadence and she has the skills set, but she just doesn't. She doesn't have the refinement, right?
That's right.
So just what you guys are doing is just bringing all that skill set, which a lot of people just don't have.
It's like
and refining it.
I brought a prop. Are you allowed to bring props to market?
Absolutely.
There's a handful of folks who listen to this, but here's we have
a
our
lot of people review it,
right? And this is a screenplay from Star Wars by George Lucas. And so what we do is in the interview process, we give this to candidates, and it's fun to see that like Tarantino screenplays are 3 times as thick or something like that. But
because they're all written on the set.
They're
written on the fly.
On the fly, yeah. Like,
and then 80% of them are improvised.
But that he gives them a structure. That's why it's a script, not a screenplay, and or a screenplay, not a script. And that's what we do is say there's certain elements when we write a screenplay that are jazz, that are free form, and say we give you the intent, we give you the tone, the persona, much like if you were on one talk show versus another. There's a different style if you're on Jim Lair's old newscast versus Jimmy Kimmel, and that's jazz, and you can riff a little bit. But there's certain parts that we believe of your screenplay that are Mozart, and you don't screw with Mozart. You play Mozart the way it's intended. You play jazz as a free form. And unfortunately, what we see in a lot of organizations who come to us is you have a sales team of 10, 20, 50, 100, and they're all playing jazz. And it's not jazz where clarinet, go, trombone, go, drums, go. It's just everybody running their own
They have
riff.
their own system and they do their own thing, and it's not a coordinated.
And then there's still stuff that falls, there's still revenue that happens, certainly in those situations. But what we try to do, again, is disattenuate the noise and reduce it down to just a bare bones 68 Shelby model with no Bondo, and then we build it up from there. And it's very simple, but it's not easy because it's countercultural.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks. But much like you guys have a screenplay, you and Sean follow, right? Every
Absolutely not. We are more jazz. We are all jazz,
and that's why it works.
Yeah, it works for us, but for a lot of podcasters, it doesn't work. They have to come with their own screenplay, or a lot of times with a full-on script. I mean, most of the large podcasters really have a full script. They have everything written out, everything's overproduced. And everything is written for them.
Really?
Especially in the larger ones like the Daily Wire podcast and what have you. They have a host of producers. We have two amazing producers, but they don't tell us what to say.
They don't. They don't whisper. There's nothing.
Well,
in your ear that
here's kind of how the sauce is made. I mean, Sean and I probably listen and read most of the same things. Read most of the same things. So when he'll come with some topics he wants to cover. I'll come with some topics I want to cover on our rants. And the way I know that we've done our preparation is that he'll say something and it'll cause my mind to start riffing on that because I'm prepared for what he's going to talk about.
Really?
And that is unique. That is not the way most podcasts work. And certainly political podcasts. Most of it is very scripted. And except with guys like the Ruthless Podcast and some other more collaborative, but they still have some pieces of it that are produced. And with us, other than what we've been doing, these things called hot takes, and we'll throw those in the mix, and at least we've watched the videos, maybe once or twice, but our reactions are completely off the cuff.
That's what makes it so authentic.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's what's important about our podcast versus I think other podcasts is that we're authentic. You and I are sitting here having a conversation. We didn't talk about what we were going to say.
Yeah.
And that's the way I want it. That's the way we both want it.
Yeah, that's right.
But we're also really blessed that we have a rapport, just like you and I do, that we respect and know each other well enough that we can, not finish each other's sentences.
Sure.
But when Sean comes, he's prepared. And I have an inkling of what he's been looking at and reading, and he certainly knows what I've been looking at and reading. And so we just riff off each other.
So taking back to the Golden Eagle, the distributor, some of your top clients that you've had over the years that you built and your father built and your grandfather built, would you have that same type of trust-based relationship with them?
Well, that takes time. I mean, so much of sales in that environment, to be honest with you, is you have the product and you got to know the product. You got to be able to sell features, benefits, all those great things about, the king of beers or whatever else you're selling. I mean, we had some oddball products too, and they still do. The thing about selling to a customer in the open market has really nothing to do with the product. It has everything to do with them. It has everything to do with understanding what they're all about, what makes them tick, what's important to them. One instruction I always gave to our salespeople when they would go on a cold call or they would go to a new customer. And our business at the time, of course, very male dominated.
Sure.
But on the retail side, very female dominated. A lot of retail customers, especially Circle K, liquor managers and Fry's or Safeway. A lot of
buyers would be more females.
More female. Not so much on the corporate side, but certainly at the street level. And so if you walked into, let's say, I had a number of Circle K managers that I personally called on, all female. And the males were always stressed about the store. Females were always stressed about what was going on at home while they were at the store. And so I would always go in with the idea that I was going to talk to them about what's going on with them. I wasn't there to sell. They knew I was there, and they knew I was going to ask for something. And as long as they knew that, I could close a sale at the end, but I would never start with that. I would always begin with, and people, when you go cold call on anybody, what's the first thing you should look for?
The first thing I should look for, if I'm face to face,
Face to face. What's the first thing?
Probably their facial expression. How are they doing? Are they maybe situational awareness? Are they busy?
No, you look for what's on their desk. What's in back of them.
Really?
And what's on the walls.
For a connection.
What's on the walls. Look at what's on the wall when you walk in.
So if I have a big sailfish, or if I have pictures of my kids, or if I have a Dallas Cowboys, whatever.
This is a great discussion, because I had a manager at the old Smith's stores, which then became Fry's. Could not crack this guy. For the longest time, people come back and say, "No, he won't do anything for us. He won't do this. He won't do that. Won't accept anything." Went in and to talk to him, just to make a call, just to say hello and thank him for his business and whatever else, because it was a big store. Did a lot of volume. And I walk in, he's got Kansas City Chiefs stuff all over the place. And I go, "Has anybody asked this guy about the Kansas City Chiefs?" And no one really had that discussion with, because they were like fearful of him. And so I would just go in there and we just talk football. And I did that for a couple times. And then he learned to trust me. I wasn't in there to do anything but what would benefit him and his store. That's the other thing. If you're just going into any cold call face to face, that pushing something that will only benefit you, you're going to lose the sale. It's got to be a mutual benefit. So once I found what that was, we had the run of the store. I did that, and I did that time and time again.
Chris,
and the biggest thing I tell everybody is, like, what's on their desk? What do you mean what's on their desk?
Love that.
Do they have a picture of their kids? Do they have a picture of a sports team? Do they like a specific rock star? I mean, something's going to be there.
Sure. Sure.
And because the one thing people love to talk about is themselves.
Yeah.
So get them talking about themselves, at least in the initial one or two calls, before you jump in and want to make the big sale.
Did your pop have you do a lot of cold calling when you would come back from summers and do your internship, or do you do a little warehouse work? And
I was really lucky. My first year. Wait, am I interviewing your? No, I'm just kidding. My first year,
it's about sales. Though.
Yeah,
it
is.
Yeah.
So my first year, I had to visit all of our branches. And I knew nothing really about sales. I knew a lot about merchandising,
but
a little bit about
you.
marketing.
These were cold sits.
Nobody knew me. And I purposely really instructed people to say, don't tell anybody who I am. I'm just a helper.
Yep.
Eventually people figured it out.
Sure.
But I really just wanted to sit back and observe, because I had so much to learn. And I was struggling at that time whether I even wanted to stay. It was it was so new, and I was back in the business the first time in 6 years. So I had a couple really dynamic salespeople up in Flagstaff who taught me how to sell, who taught me some of these skills. And that was an environment where we didn't have a big market share.
Okay.
Comparatively speaking to the rest of our branches. We were still, I think, over 50% of the time, but that was declining because craft was coming in. And craft and imports really taking a foothold. So we had to pivot and sell what we had against the other guys. And a lot of that had to do with features and benefits, but most of that was all relationships. It was all relationships. And so I learned both. I learned how to sell based on data. I learned how to sell based on relationships with those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They were tremendous teachers. And the branch manager there, who's since passed away, in fact, one of the sales guys there has passed away too. I mean, I learned a ton from him. He was a crotchety old beer salesman. His name was Dave McQuarters. Yeah. And by crotchety, I mean, he's like, "Hey, how are you? What's going on?" And that was sort of his voice. And cussed every other word was GD or F.
But people trusted him.
But he was a guy who was from Flagstaff.
Okay.
Had been there, had worked for my grandfather. Everybody knew him. Everybody trusted him, and it was a really dynamic.
So how do you teach
place.
that? How did they do the Vulcan mind meld to say, you don't have 20 years to learn this. You have a summer to learn as much as possible.
Yeah, I had a summer basically, and a summer and a half basically.
Yep.
You know, you've got to be smart about it. You got to know what you want to learn, and you got to know your own strengths and weaknesses and your own parameters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's probably the most important thing. And so once I figured out who I wanted to learn from and who was really good, then I went to Dave and said, okay, I want to spend time with him. I want to spend time with him because I want to know what they know. And that became sort of my mantra when I went to every branch. I would figure out who was the person who really knew their stuff.
Sure.
And I would spend as much time with them as I could. Because there were always other people who were just kind of there for the paycheck, or they were okay salespeople, but they weren't
we call
really
them tourists where we're at.
Yeah, but they weren't really. They were good employees and they're good people, but they weren't knocking it out of the park.
No. But this tribal knowledge is what you wanted to condense down into a formula to maybe replicate in your style.
Yeah,
and I think that's what every business goes off of, right? Is the sense of what works. Hey, go sit next to the top guy in the corner. Go learn from him. And again, that's a statue. That's not a machine.
But there's another axiom that I learned when I was in politics, and that is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Sure. Yeah.
And that informed me in those relationship building.
Yeah.
Just sitting down and
yeah.
And one thing I always communicated back to our salespeople whenever I was in front of them is like, you know, you're back then it really meant something. I don't know how much it means nowadays, but back then you're the bud man. and that means something in this sales environment. And for a lot of these customers, you're going to be the best person they see all day.
The best meaning what?
Meaning
the happiest guy?
You work for a company you can be proud of.
Okay.
You're showing up with the best tools, the best technology, the best of everything. You know, for a Circle K manager, with all due respect to Circle K, which has not changed much in the 10, 15 years since I've been gone for the business, that's a rough job. That's a really, really thankless, rough job. And some of those managers are not just managing one store, they're managing 2 or 3.
Really?
And they're running and gunning all day long. And if you can make their life easier in the smallest of ways,
yeah.
that's your job.
It's uncanny, Chris. What you're saying is how germane it is to cold calling. I was having a conversation with my podcast partner actually this morning, Chris Beal, and what we were talking about is the first 7 seconds again, which is what you're I think you're alluding to.
Yeah,
is that in a cold outreach environment, oftentimes the sales rep has a product in mind, they have a service in mind. You are a mark for me. You picked up the phone, and my screen says you fit the persona. You're a VP of technology. You're in this marketplace. Your revenue is so and so. So you are a mark for me. And anything you say that is outside of the boundaries of are you a fit, I'm not even listening to.
Yeah.
Right. I am myopic on are you binary? Are you a fit or not? In spite of what you had said, is that it's a human selling to human. It's a person selling to person.
Yeah.
And my dog crapped on the carpet place, or I had 3 team members who called in sick today. I had 1 who quit. My straw vendor is late, so I have cups at Circle K without any straws.
Yeah. And it takes work too, because you have to be able to identify those times when that buyer or that store manager or that bar owner just can't talk to you right now.
Yeah, that empathy or the situational awareness.
And salespeople often feel like they're under a lot of stress to make the sale.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, just look at the environment.
Sure.
Read the environment. No doesn't necessarily mean no. 9 times out of 10 it means not right now. And so what is your strategy to go back when maybe that person is in a better frame of mind?
Sure.
And tell them about what you're selling.
You just described our methodology is market dominance from the old Chet Holmes ultimate buying pyramid, where he talks about that the life cycle of a laptop, of a car, of maybe a Yeti cooler is about 3 years. A microwave oven.
Yeah.
In other words, if I buy a microwave oven, I'm not looking for a microwave oven next week again. In my mind, I'm onto the next problem in my household, which is, okay, now I have a washer dryer that needs to be repaired. Or if I'm on my car, now I'm onto my tires versus my carburetor. And in software and sales, and it sounds like what you're saying is that way too, is that if I try to get you and try to accelerate the timing of that when it's not ready, what I've done is I've just, in essence, educated a prospect for my competition.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because if you irritate that person and they come off with a bad taste in their mouth, then the trust is gone.
Yeah, and it's
you have to respect where they are at that moment.
For sure.
If you want to make a sale.
Yeah.
And then respect. Then you have to make more time.
Yeah.
The sale has to be that much important to you to go back when the timing's right.
Is there a methodology that is a language that is used by retail vendors, such as food and beverage, et cetera, when they're approaching a Circle K or Safeway or Smith's Manager? Like, is there a book that all the big guys?
Yeah, so much of that is programmed, but I was always of the belief that as much as programmed, there's always room for improvement. Mm-hmm. And so I would always try to get the extra. Mm-hmm. And there's room for extra. Not every space is programmed. Some things are, in terms of the soda guys pay for things and what have you.
Yeah.
But on the liquor side, as much as programmed, there's always a space somewhere.
But I'm talking about the methodology that's used. Like, this is, right, you go in following, this is the ABC, this is a Zig Ziglar formula, this is the ABC formula. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a concept called channel selling. And so the way you're going to sell to a large, chain store, where a lot of it's programmed, versus an independent store, it's going to be totally different mindset, totally different expectations of what of both execution and professionalism and everything else. And I'm sure it's even become more advanced than that.
Sure.
Since back in the day.
But it sounds like, were you more of an unconscious competent? You just knew people. Hey, you're leading the charm life in SoCal, and hey, this is easy. This is, people like to have fun. They see me pulling up in my bud truck, and this is great.
I don't know about that, but I think there's a confidence that comes by doing. And after I felt like I had enough success by doing, whether it was because of my position in the company or not, that played into it, I'm sure. But just getting to the point where you're not afraid to ask for the sale. The biggest compliment I ever got from a retailer was, okay, what is it going to be, this week? What do you got for me this week?
From you, pitch me.
Yeah, just knowing that I was going to make nice, and I was going to make pleasantries, and I was going to do all those things, but I never left without asking for something. And as long as I was upfront with that, about that, this is going to be. I want to care about you. I want to help you, and I'm going to try to make everything work for you. But this is what I need in return. And there were so many salespeople within our organization, because we were so successful for so long. Just we would say, stack it high, watch it fly, and it's just. But then when things slow down, that's when you have to really get artful about sales. And we had a lot of guys who were great relationship guys, tremendous relationship guys, but they would never ask for the sale.
And what would make them tremendous relationship? The first few minutes,
everyone liked them because they never asked for anything.
Got it.
That was sort of their mantra. Oh, everyone likes so-and-so because they never asked me for anything. And I tell them exactly what I want. I would ride with these guys, and some women too. And I was like, you didn't ask for whatever display thing that we had on the docket for that day. Oh, I'll come back and do it. I'm like, okay. And so that was the type of thing that we had to deal with, and what I think when I finally was running things, we didn't have a lot of those people anymore.
No.
I didn't like that.
Well, on your private equity side of the business, you find when you're talking with entrepreneurs, particularly the entrepreneurs, because the CEOs, a lot of the CEOs don't like to sell; they like to build.
Well, CEOs, typically are visionaries, and they don't want to work. They don't want to work in the business. They want to work on the business, and there's a difference. And I've coached a lot of different CEOs through that difference. You know, I had a buddy, prominent business here. I use this example all the time. I won't say who it is, but restaurant business, and he had built the thing up from nothing.
Yep.
And he would see something go on, and he would just jump in and handle it. And I finally said to him, and one example was one of his businesses had an ice cream shop, and one afternoon he saw somebody doing something wrong, or something was missing, or they were short on somebody. He jumped behind the counter and started scooping ice cream. I'm like, you're the CEO of the company.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, it's one thing if it's one time, but he was doing that a lot. And I go, you know, at some point you got to stop scooping ice cream. And you got to start being the leader that everybody knows, sees in you, and start giving direction and vision.
Sure.
And making sure people have the tools, technology, and understanding where the company's going and how to run the company.
Yeah.
And you should work on the strategic things, not so much in the weeds.
Was it tough for him to do that?
And I'm working with a client right now saying it's the same thing. You know, it's not ice cream. It's a little bit different.
Sure.
And I can't say who it is, but it's the same thing. I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
What do you
tough.
guys call it in on your side of the equation?
Well, the founderitis. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Founderitis.
Founderitis.
That's a great.
Was it Henry Ford who said the definition of sales manager is best damn salesperson in the place, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's from. Is that a cuss? You can count that in this podcast. Is that all right?
Yeah.
But the CEO.
Oh, we've
I think,
said
is the
much worse on this podcast.
No, I think the CEO, I think, is the same way. But what happens in a lot of our world with a lot of our clients is even with the CROs, even with some of the VPs of sales, is they do just the opposite. They want to manage, not lead.
Yeah.
And if you can't articulate your sales process, what notes hit Mozart the way they're supposed to be hit, and instead you manage by spreadsheets, and right, that's the kind of the dumbing down of a lot of sales tools out there. Is you have AI and you have SalesLoft and you have these dashboards and these auto dialers, et cetera, and I think people are losing their dogfighting skills. Just what you had iterated, what you learned of a person sitting across the table from another person, or a Zoom and another Zoom, and a lot of it is the signals that a prospect is giving you. The rep almost has these glasses on that they're these earmuffs on where they're ignoring it.
Yeah.
And it's that the residue from the folks who don't buy from you is what you learn from. Otherwise, there's too much survivorship bias. You see this in your companies where, hey, I did a seed round, and maybe I did a pre-seed round before that, and then I get to an A round, and all of a sudden the sales start to stall. And the reason is because everybody who gave you money in the pre-seed and the seed round, they introduce you to everybody. So you had this tribal think, this group think.
That's a great point.
And when you get into the greater market, they realize, wait a minute. And because you weren't paying attention to the false positives and negatives that happen in every market of, how did Bud Light Lime come about? It probably came about because, I kind of like beer, and I really want, something with a little bit more citrus in it. And a traditional beer rep would be like, well, that's not us. But there's somebody smart in St. Louis or said, hey, Corona does it. Let's just try to blend these two and see what happens. And that's by listening to a false positive or false negative in the marketplace.
Yeah. I mean, and conversely, you can be like Bud Light and set yourself on fire.
That's right.
You can ignore.
You can ignore that.
Absolutely ignore. You're get me on my soapbox on this one, but you can absolutely ignore the 30-something years of tradition that you built.
For sure.
The consumer base that was fiercely loyal no matter what, and blow yourself up. In one instant.
In that boardroom, I wonder what was going on in those type of conversations. Just so we have an idea for a spokesperson or
there's a guy wrote a book about it, Anson Frerichs.
Really?
Anson was one of the presidents of Anheuser-Busch. He was there during that time. He's been on our podcast. Great guy, and his book. I'm trying to blank on the name of it. His book basically chronicles Anheuser-Busch's rise, and after the Brazilians bought it, it's complete and total implosion, and it's never recovered. And it hasn't recovered. They're in deep trouble.
That self-immolation what
I mean, to
what
where
drove
his solution is he believes an American PE firm or American conglomerate needs to buy it back to get it back to where it is, and have the international be where it is, but reclaim the American business.
That's the way it'll thrive again.
Yeah. So
Keep it local.
yeah, so the customers and the wholesalers will get back on a good footing.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's his solution, which I'm not in disagreement of.
Well, again, as entrepreneur and as a private equity investor, right, you probably see a lot of companies that are right on that precipice, right? It could happen to Bud Light, could happen to New Coke, right? It happens all the time where folks say, "Hey, I want to go this way," versus kind of abandon that core market.
Well, what I see a lot, and I'm seeing something right now. What I see a lot is firms that come in, they make an investment. They're not happy with the growth, so they come in, they parachute somebody in there because they think they can fix it, and then they blow up the culture, they blow up the vision, they blow up everything. And they leave the founder, dying on the production floor.
Sure.
And then they wonder within a year or two what happened to the business.
Yeah, seagull management, right? Come in, crap all over the place, and then fly off.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's happening more often than not.
Yeah, and then it's basically a salvage value.
You're still, I mean, this is in, even seed companies, you're still raising money, but you're in revenue and you're building. And then, your big investor gets a little impatient and wants to come in and change rather than just making some tweaks along the edges to make sure things run properly. They want to impart their vision, their understanding of the business onto the business, and that never works.
Yeah. That's one of the things we've tried to do at Branch is recommend to our companies, because we have a lot of mature companies. We have some very Fortune 100 brands, but we also have a lot of A stage, B stage companies that are still trying to find their footing in the marketplace. And what we see and what we teach our folks is that every conversation you have, whether it ended again in a demo, a meeting, some insight, or whether it ended in, hey, piss off, don't call me again, lose my number, there's still some intel to be had.
Oh, yeah.
And that intel is the property of the company that hires us.
Yeah.
So it's not just the meetings, it's everything, because right, you as a CEO, as a board member, you're never going to have 100% of the data needed to make a decision. You may have, give me 30%, give me 50%, give me some factor where I can at least make a gut call here based off of the data that I have. But to make the call, like it sounds like these two examples here that we're talking about made, where contrarian to the data that we have, we're going to go right when everybody says you should continue the course or go left.
And the name of that book is Last Call for Bud Light.
Last Call
for Bud Light by Anson Frericks.
I love that.
And he's been he was on Tucker. He's been so forthcoming about the disaster that was. What happened with AB, which is one of the saddest things of American industry.
Well, especially for you, I'm sure it's like.
Well, I mean, actually, no. I feel bad for my friends who are still in the business, and a lot of them are still fighting with AB. They fight with AB all the time. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's not conducive. It's not the same environment.
Yeah.
And so that story will continue to be written.
Yeah, vanity upon vanity, right? I mean, vanity is
it's not even vanity. It's just ignorance. It's one thing to be vain. It's the other thing to be totally ignorant about who your customer is, what the brand represents.
Sure.
And then I keep saying, and then literally set yourself on fire.
Yeah.
Blow up 30 years of market dominance in one campaign. And what's so interesting about that is that Coors did the same thing back in the 70s.
Really?
And brands have cycles, and there's always a marketing individual or team or whatever who thinks they have the code. They're going to crack the code of what's not working for the brand, even though the brand is working just fine, and they blow it up.
New smart kids coming in. Hey, old man, I know what.
Well, this was a case where a person straight out of the Ivy League, never spent any time in St. Louis, was in New York. They had moved all their offices and executive offices in New York, and in that environment, that's not reality.
Yeah,
that's not consumer product reality.
Yeah.
That's a nice place to crunch numbers and look at strategy and whatever.
It's a bubble.
But if you want, reality, go out and look at reality. It's kind of like the Democrats right now. Not to play politics, but they're going to spend $20 million right now to find out how to market to men.
Yeah.
Okay, I can save them $20 million.
Okay.
Go to a NASCAR race, go to a dive bar, go to a sports bar, and just spend time.
Yeah.
Buy a couple rounds, see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You know, look
No,
at the beer
that's
business.
amazing.
That's how you'll know how to market to
To
men.
market to men. Again, Chris Beal, keep talking about one of the things in one of our first podcasts 5 years ago. You want to learn your product. It's uncanny, Chris. What you're saying here is he said go to a bar, and let's say I have my ideal prospect. It's a VP of technology for a company, and I'm trying to sell some software widget or performance improvement tool, et cetera, to them. Is go up to them and sit on their left side, right? Because most people are right-handed, and people are more comfortable when you sit on the left side, right? Because it's easier than because they have their hand free to smack you if you say anything different, and ask them a simple question: how was your day? How was your week? And their response is, you have no idea, and whatever follows after that is gold.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what you want.
Yeah, the best market research you can do at any is see where the country is in politics, see where the country is in any. Go to a bar. Seriously, go to a bar.
Yeah.
Go to a dive bar. Go to a sports bar. Don't go to a club
Well,
where
you and
people are
Sean
paying $20 for a drink. Don't go there.
Sure.
That's not where you're going to find out what's really going on.
Well, why don't you do some remotes?
We should.
Billy, let's do books with these guys for some remotes and, the Dirty Drummer or something like that,
We
right?
absolutely should.
Long Wongs. Is that Long Wong still around? I don't know. That's it.
Over there on Thomas, I think it might be.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it could
I haven't
be.
been there in forever.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's it's not that hard when you. And we were talking about some of the local candidates for governor.
Right. Sure.
And so much of that process is the same thing. It's like you can either go into the VFW with cowboy boots and a hat and order everybody around and just be as if people can relate to you, or you can't.
Well, a Jeb Bush, right?
And
It's
if you
probably a good
can't,
example.
then you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
And one thing that Donald Trump does not get enough credit for is he's a tremendous retail politician.
Yeah.
He knows, the stupid hat and the white shirt and the blazer and the tennis shoes and the wrinkled khakis.
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's the richest guy around.
Yeah.
But he goes to a rally with that stuff on. And he shakes every hand. Says hello to as many people as he can.
Does it ever go back?
Can you see? You know what? Those are beardoms. That's how you sell anything. Shaking hands, kissing babies. Telling people. Approaching them where they are.
Yeah.
Super important.
Does that genie ever go back in the bottle in the future? Future cycles where the Jeb Bushes of the world or they roll up the sleeves of their flannel shirts and do the 4th of July parade. Or is it seen as too inauthentic now?
Just depends on depends the place where they come from. I mean, it's only they can. Authenticity comes from your heart and comes from you. You're either authentic or not, and most people that's been the key to the last several elections, and it's certainly the key to local elections. You're either authentic or you're not.
Yeah.
And the lack of authenticity shines through every time.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we're saying is, as Chris Voss says, right? I mean, once you lose that trust, it is a revocable item. It's not a Little Debbie that has an interminable shelf life, right? It can be lost, and once you lose it, your competition can swoop in and take it from you.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's the same in politics, as you've seen. It's the same in business.
Politics, business. That's why we study. That's why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
If you even in the church.
Yeah.
Faith, freedom, free enterprise. If you lose that trust in any of those three pillars,
for sure,
you're toast.
Yeah. Yeah, we say that certainly as a Catholic, right? We always say, well, hey, I don't go to Catholic church anymore. I don't go to this church anymore, or I'm more of a spiritual guy or gal or what have you, and that's fine. And a response as still a believer in in the Catholic system is, hey, there's bad priests, but you still go to church. There's bad mechanics, and you still get your car fixed, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think that's part of it.
My point is, as long as you're going,
As long as
just
you're going,
go.
for sure.
I don't care. I don't care where you go, as
Yeah.
long as you're going.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because I think we crave that system, right? We crave that book. We crave those guidelines. We crave those parameters. We crave that certainty. Certainly, I think.
Well,
in a lot of
I mean,
ways.
to talk about authenticity, I think true authenticity comes from a dedicated commitment to faith. And I think if you don't have that as a leader, if you don't know where you've come from, if you're both on your family history and the struggles you've had, and be able to be authentic about those things and be real about those things as a leader, that's going to come through in everything that you do. You will never be able to really grow.
Take me as I am, meaning.
Well, it's not just that, but just, the whole idea of servant leadership. I'm here to serve.
Yeah.
But I'm also here to steer and to create strategies and vision for companies to succeed. That comes from a different place.
How do you see companies that struggle with bringing faith into the boardroom, into the organization,
because it's been downplayed, if not rejected. And that was one thing that I'm proud to say we in our company we never shied away from.
never compromised on that.
No, never. And did we get it right all the time? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a perfect example of a fallen person. Did I get that right? No, absolutely not. But I was always where I am now, and the life that I'm living now, I was always striving for. So that in and of itself is a victory.
Yeah, that Matthew McConaughey Oscar speech from a few years ago, right? He says, you need to be your hero 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Right. And just that element where you're an imperfect fallen man, and you're striving for a better version of yourself in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being
absolutely,
here. This was fun.
Let's not make it another 4 or 5 years or so. We
I don't know who interviewed who.
Guys. It's always a pleasure to get some insight. And
we'll have to have you back when Sean's back.
Where would I sit? I don't know. Would I sit on the other side of the table?
right smack in the middle.
Okay, deal. I'll do that.
Well, thanks so much.
Absolutely.
And God bless everyone at Branch 49, who I know listen to the show.
They do. They're I think,
which is great.
Yeah, they love this. They love your insight, yours and Sean's. And thanks for your support for Branch 49. I know Kevin Youngblood and Robert Vera and the team over at GCU. We appreciate everything that you and Sean do for
we
that place.
would not be here without Canyon Ventures and GCU. It just wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate that's why we like highlighting companies like yours, all the great entrepreneurial companies coming out of Canyon Ventures. We want to highlight, we're going to have here on the show. Yeah. And because we think the work that's being done there is vastly important.
Dean John, he's another guest to have on the.
Who, John Cadis?
Yeah, of course.
I've asked John. John will come on.
Okay.
We'll get him on.
I think if you get him and Robert together, I think that'd be a good.
That would be a great podcast.
That'd be a tag team. So, beautiful. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for listening. God bless.
You got it. Thank you.